What is your healing balm? We have countless opportunities for repair, for healing, for mending, all the different ways in which ruptures or fractures can take place, whether it be physical, more often than not, it is emotional. And sometimes these things can be shoved under the rug, kind of put into the background and not attended to. And then suddenly it's here on the surface. And there are so many ways in which we can meet that piece, that part of either within ourselves, which it usually comes back to, or in a relationship out here. Now, I heard once that if we treat the relationship we have with every single person that we meet as if it's the first time that we have ever met them, that relationship will continue forever. Now, how can that be? What do you imagine is the case for something to last forever? So, as I thought about this, I thought, well, that has to do with the relationship that I have with myself. So, if I have a relationship of loving kindness with myself, if I can allow fractures and ruptures to happen and without brushing them under the rug, without pushing them away, and there's no judgment for when we do that, don't get me wrong, because I've done that. And oftentimes we do it unconsciously because we don't have the resource, the know how, the perhaps energy, the support, whatever it takes to do the mending, the work of mending, the great good work of mending. So if you consider that the different ways, I want to just talk about a few today. Like one would be, first of all, to just notice, almost like we can do a somatic tracking. Because when there's a fracture, we always feel something's off in our body. It's our body is giving us information. Our body is so intelligent and it's telling us that something is asking to be corrected. And we can feel it. We can feel it energetically, like to varying degrees, to the degree of maybe something feels, numb, it's not alive, there's a density, there's all different kinds of feelings that can happen, freezing, shaking, wanting to run, get away, move away, sadness, heaviness, tightness, all the different sensations that we can track. So, if we could first of all just pause and let ourselves breathe into our bodies and then track somatically what's happening. What is the sensation of our experience? And when we start to let ourselves get into sensation, along with that might come a poignant experience, a memory, a remembering. Or we meet somebody along the way and it reminds us, oh, I would like to attend to that. That doesn't feel quite right. So there are countless opportunities to kind of go back. And it might be that we don't go back to the relationship immediately. We may need to do that work inside of ourselves first. And one way to do that would be to write about it, to just like without necessarily cognitively going through the situation in our mind, but just like putting a pen to paper and without thinking, just like write out everything that you're feeling, sensing, noticing, just give it a voice on paper. And some clarity will start to come and it will start to take some kind of shape and you'll be able to name something from that. And then you can pause with it even more. Doesn't mean we give this to the other person. We can set it on our altar if we have something like that. But we know that in our heart and in our body, that there's this ongoing possibility for repair. And the universe creates these opportunities. So if we can have a little faith in our own hearts, in the intelligence in our body, in our wholeness, in the goodness of who we are that wants to set things right when they've gone off in any way at all. So we can put it on paper, give it a pause, we can return back to it and see, Is there some action that wants to happen? Like, what is the activity? What is the movement of these words, these sensations, these feelings that I've put on paper? Is there a next thing? Is there an activity that they now want to do? Sometimes in the 12-step program, we call this making amends. Is there a place where there is an amendment, amending that can happen? And then you see, and this is something we can always go really slow with because we want there also to be receptivity on the other side. We also want to have enough mending and healing and softness inside of ourselves that our approach is kind. So, another way to be with this, besides kind of just putting it down, could be to just let somebody be a listener for you, a receptive listener, not one who tells you what to do, that is just really there as a mirror. Can be a mirror for you and just listen to what might be feeling off, and that is arising in you to be mended, to be healed. And listen without judgment, without giving directions on how to attend to it or fix it. Not about fixing, but about feeling right, feeling that essential goodness that we all have inside of us, setting things right. Nothing, we haven't done anything wrong essentially because this is the great learning of being human, is we stumble sometimes. And how do we grow and blossom and learn? Well, we make mistakes. We go off path for a moment, and then the intention is to always come back. So that's another way, is to just like find a good friend that can listen, a mentor, a guide. And then another way, and this might even be the first one, is to practice loving kindness with yourself. Now, when we think about relationships, there's so many ways to think about relationship, but there's an exchange. In a healthy relationship, there's an exchange of giving and receiving. And when I think of giving and receiving, I think of my hands, and I think of, like when we're in right relationship, we're in the rightness of who we are and the goodness and innocence of our heart. So it's a movement of the heart of giving and receiving. And as we learn to be in relationship, this could be there could be many courses on this, because it goes back to how did we learn relationships? We learn about relationships in early childhood. And there's all these attachment theories about how we are in relationship. And most of our trauma happens in relationship. So this is why I say go slow, go slow. But we can think of a loving kindness meditation, a practice that we can do with ourselves. And I started out with hands. So you could begin with just visualizing your hands, maybe letting them set on your lap, as we often do in meditation, and just letting them get soft. Like you're not holding anything in your hands right now. You're just letting them be soft and appreciating your hands for all that they do at different times, what they carry. Many of us are mothers or have been mothers, or a father, or have been a child. We've all been a child, right? When the hands and the arms are what holds that baby. So think of yourself like that degree of kindness and tenderness for your hands. And let them get soft. It's like you're exuding kindness into the hands. You just notice what happens. And so we're being somatic, we're being in our sensations. What does that feel like? To be kind and soft and tender with your hands, loving kindness. And then we could bring our hands onto our head. And this is a good place to let the hands rest, because often we can have, a narrative going on in our headspace that sometimes is critical. It's like an interject of a voice of culture, of family, of patriarchy. And that We can just be so loving with kindness to how narrations may spin out in the head. We just give this loving kindness to thought, to mind, to head. Maybe put one hand in the front and one hand in the back. Breathe in loving kindness and breathe out anything that isn't kind. Letting yourself be soft and tender. And just notice what that feels like. And you can continue anywhere that your hands may gravitate. Perhaps it's the neck. Sometimes we feel like we're sticking our neck out. If we approach a particular relationship, it can feel risky. So let yourself just sink back and let your neck be soft. You don't have to stick your neck out. Just be right here. And then in the front is your voice box, where sound comes through. Loving kindness in the neck and in the front. And at the shoulders, just you're holding yourself. Maybe you haven't given yourself a nice gentle pat of kindness. So breathe yourself wide and breathe yourself soft and tender. And come to the front, to the heart. And let that loving kindness trickle to the back of the heart as well. Softening, expanding. Feel the sensations of loving kindness in your body. And we'll continue solar plexus, belly. Notice maybe the breath wasn't going there. Now you're inviting more breath into the solar plexus and down into the belly, the lower belly. And let that also reach into the low back. The low back can be a place of strain, of holding. And for now, there's nothing to hold. It can also be a place where feelings of insecurity may live. But right now, in this loving kindness meditation, you're allowing yourself to be secure in your own body. With loving kindness coming home and down and into your body, tending to you, all the way into the pelvis, yoni, the sit bones, the buttocks. Loving kindness all the way down the legs to the feet. Oh, I went too quick over the knees. Not to forget the knees. Those places where our body holds tender bones, work really hard at different times. I just had a nice pop in my back. Yeah, so feel that since we've been breathing, loving kindness, receiving for ourselves into our body, that there's much more fluidity, like your body may feel just flows a little bit differently. Not that it's better or worse, that it just, you have a little more water moving. The breath brings more water into the body, and the body of emotions is very watery, very fluid. And let that loving kindness drip all the way down to the feet, the bottoms of the feet, and feel anchored in your feet. So I want you to consider practicing this loving kindness meditation, especially if there's a time where you're feeling some different fractures here and there in life that might be on your mind or on your heart and perhaps being regurgitated in different ways and cycling through the system. In this loving kindness, there's an unfurling and undoing and a clarity that can happen on what is the activity that I can take. But it always begins here. When we have this loving kindness relationship with ourselves, like as if we're entering ourselves for the first time. Hello, it's me. And then we can be that way in our external outer relations, like it's the first time. And there isn't a backlog of history of or interpretations or projections that can often confuse or put an overlay over something that could be really beautiful, rich, nourishing. Yeah. So I wrote a couple of things down today. And I guess the main thing that I want to say again is that this is like like taking time for loving kindness with yourself is a wonderful healing balm. And then you can bring this to all your relations. And you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it alone. And you have different tools. And I'm sure that you have others that you know much more about already and that you do practice. And good for you because it takes some courage sometimes, especially if something's been hanging around for a while, but it will because we're like meant to be in relationship. Connection is important to each and every one of us. So if something is, kind of in the background and asking for attention, it's not going to go away. It will keep coming back. And sometimes it will come back in a different shape or form. A different person shows up, same issue. So see if you can attend. And I say this now because I'm doing this also all the time. And I realized that not that long ago, when I was doing a lot of deep writing and my own writing, I was noticing different things that haven't quite all the way been mended yet. And I was processing and processing a lot. And I could see that I carried at the time something in different environments that had nothing to do with the people in the environments. It was me, it was my stuff. And I had to go back, and I still kind of am, to apologize for how I may have been at that time. And for some of the people, they were like, no, we didn't even notice that. But I want to be sure because it's important to me. Relationships are important, and I'm sure they are to you. So use that recipe for the healing balm for yourself and your relations. And have a beautiful day. Keep in touch. I love to hear your comments and see you next time. Lots of love. Bye bye.